Welcome to the Cara Michelle Show, where we break out of the matrix together and return heaven to earth. This is a place for the spiritual seekers and leaders, the dreamers and doers, the conscious creators and world changers. You can expect a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but mostly a whole lot of purpose, freedom, and sovereignty. And of course, all things quantum. May this podcast serve you in remembering the truth of who you are, all that you came here to do, and how deeply supported you are in doing it. You are incredibly powerful and your mission is protected. So it's time to dial up your frequency and recalibrate to your higher self and limitless potential. Get ready, because we're about to blast off. A new reality awaits you on the other side. I'll see you there. Hello, and welcome back, my beautiful, expansive dreamer. Today, we are going to be talking about a concept discussed in one of Dolores Cannon's books, the Convoluted Universe series. And there's so much that jumps out at me as I'm reading these books again, and so much that correlates or connects to things I've experienced in my own quantum hypnosis work with myself and with clients, and also a lot of parallels with other teachers and mentors that I really look up to. So I wanted to speak to something that I think not only blows your mind, which is always exciting and really cool, but really helps bring home the concept of parallel dimensions and jumping timelines and creating new realities. One thing I personally am passionate about, which probably hasn't come across in my content over the years, is that I don't actually really believe in manifestation. I feel like that term itself is very much, I don't know, I just don't like the term because it implies magic, or it implies certain actions or creating and doing it, when the way I see it is it's about aligning. So you're energetically aligning with something. That could be a specific person, that could be a specific reality, a specific desire, an outcome. You are energetically aligning with it, and that creates the ripple effect through the energy waves, through the pattern that's literally around all of us in the entire universe, not just on Earth, but it's rippling through those patterns and then bringing in what you have become a vibrational match for. So this is why I speak so much about aligning with your higher self or a future version of you when I do talk about quantum leaps or manifestation, law of attraction, all those things. Because to me, it's really just about becoming the vibrational match for what you want. And then by law of attraction, by particle theory, it shows up in your reality. It's not really about forcing or doing. And I do promote focusing on the highest good of yourself and others, or handing it over completely to God to align for you, because your ego might want to manifest a specific thing, want to create a specific reality, and it turns out to actually not be what you thought it would be. And I will be the first to admit, I have manifested and created a lot of things that once I've had them, I've gone, this is actually not what I thought it would be. And this isn't the solution. This doesn't make me happy. This isn't actually creating the outcome that I hoped it would. But it's all contrast and it's all lessons. So, mini side tangent. The thing inside the convoluted universe that Dolores Cannon was talking about, and she gives such a perfect, vivid example that I want to share with you, and then I want to break down and simplify however I can. And that has to do with realizing that the universe, so she's channeling and communicating, and this came from a part when she was communicating with someone subconscious. So they had gone into the hypnosis and now their subconscious was communicating, coming through, sharing different things related to the universe itself. So transcending just the physical 3D earth, time and space reality and connecting out into the universal time space matrix. And the thing they began to express, and the way the subconscious shared this to Dolores, was to see that the universe is like this big cloth or sheet. Like I immediately just saw like this silk sheet. So imagine that you've got like this big silk bed sheet or something laid out in front of you. And when one side moves, like it ripples and it waves, it connects to the other side of the bed sheet. And there's all these threads that are interwoven, even if one corner doesn't directly touch the other corner of another thread, they're still connected through each other and through this weaving of the fabric, right? That's very much like the Matrix. And Greg Braden has an incredible book called The Divine Matrix. It's one of my favorites as well. I'll talk about that a lot on the channel very soon. Ooh, but he talks about that as well. And a lot of ancient traditions speak about almost like a spider web matrix over the earth, a spider web kind of energy where we're all connected in the pattern. And it's how energy works. It's true. And it's so beautiful when you understand it, because you realize the impact you're making with every single thought, every single action that you create and that you have. Now, with this silk sheet and this universal size scale, the subconscious of this person began to talk about how there are times when parts of these sheets, or parts of this one sheet, sorry, kind of overlaps, and it can cause this ripple, and that then interdimensional time travel can occur, interdimensional or like inter-universal, we could say, changes can happen. One particular story had to do with someone going out hunting and killing this animal, and it was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. And they actually brought it back to their community, and so there was proof that it looked as strange as the person was describing it. They had the skull, the bones, everything, and it's like nothing that had ever been seen on earth before. And the explanation from the subconscious is that there was this ripple in the pattern, or this ripple in the silky sheet of the universe, that brought these two different dimensions, or these two different realities, kind of into an overlap. So I like immediately see, just if you had a ripple in that bed sheet and it started to fold over one another, and now these two parts are touching that otherwise would not have been touching. And what happens when those rare and extremely rare occurrences happen is that there can be a blip in the matrix. There can be something that gets translated to one universe or one dimension that wasn't otherwise there. And in this example, that is what had happened. So this person had gone out hunting, but because of something that happens very rarely, things lined up, and they were obviously like open or receptive, maybe in a high vibe state, whatever we want to analyze. I don't want to make too many assumptions, but I would guess they were probably in that high vibe state, and that's what opened up this other dimension where the person didn't even realize it. They were still walking through the forest or whatever, but there was like an overlap, almost like you had the two pictures of two completely different realities or universes, and now all of a sudden they're transposed on top of each other, and they've become one for a minute, for an hour, for a week, whatever it is, probably much shorter than that. And what was so cool about this part of the convoluted universe and the conversation with Dolores Cannon is two things. Connects to Interstellar, the movie, which is so cool. I'll get to that in a second. But also, it reminded me of what I saw when I was out at our cottage last summer, and I witnessed and I caught it on camera, what looked uh like time traveler. It looked like interdimensional, uh, kind of like a black hole vortex where there was this light and it was moving and it um, jumped and like disappeared and contracted into itself. Then it got bigger and then it moved even further away, like this little black hole vortexy thing. And when you zoom in on it, you could also, I think, it kind of looks like you can see a person standing in the middle of it, or like the outline of a human body or a physical body. Might not have been human, it could have been a galactic being, is what I first thought, because I've experienced some different things with UFOs and stuff like that before. But it almost feels like I experienced in that moment the ripple or the folding of that pattern in the universe, or the folding of these two dimensions that do not always meet up potentially, or as they said in the book, they're always existing, but they're existing on a different plane, and so they're not usually seen. My physical human senses are very limited. I can only see what is in the third dimension. I cannot see with my physical eyes. I cannot touch with my physical hands the air. I can't touch the energy particles. I can't touch the emotion of fear or love or anxiety or excitement. I can't touch. That's the fourth dimension. Those emotions that are like floating around, you can feel them in your body in terms of they create a physiological response, but I cannot actually touch it. I can't grasp it. I can't cling and hold on to it. It would be like trying to reach out and like cling to air and hold it in my hand, like sand just falling between, where like you can't actually hold it. And that's what that experience felt like for me when I saw this thing, this orb, or this other being, whatever. I don't actually know what it is. It felt like, because I was in such a high vibrational state that day, like that night, I was in the most overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. And that's exactly how I had experiences with them the year prior in Scotland, with my first like UFO sighting and communication, was being in this really loving, high vibe, overflowing state of gratitude and unconditional love, just like pouring from my body. And I was, I would say, transcending from the three-dimensional densities and in that kind of higher realm vortex of my own love moving through me, or like God's love moving through me. And that opened me up to other dimensional realms that, like I said, they're existing regardless, but we can't see them. But when we hit those states and become a match, or maybe when they drop down, which Dolores talks about in future books and stuff like that as well, if those beings decide to drop down, which can be very dense for them because Earth is such a dense plane, uh, that's when we get those messages from spirit, or we get those visions and angels or departed loved ones, or galactic beings, because they're like they're dropping down to match our density for that moment or for that experience, so that we can communicate and we can connect, we can share dialogue or receive guidance that we need, the support that we need. So, what was really cool about this in terms of jumping timelines, or in terms of creating new realities, is just bringing it into your awareness that, once again, what you think is real, what you think is true, what you can see, feel, smell, taste, and touch is not the only thing that exists. There's so much more beyond that. And if you think of it like those two pictures side by side, we've got Earth and our Milky Way galaxy, and then you've got all these other galaxies. Imagine every galaxy is like a picture the size of a printed picture on this huge silk bed sheet that probably extends way further than we could even imagine, of how many like galaxies there are and how big the universe and infinite universes. It just goes beyond our imagination can even grasp. Don't you think that at times there is some kind of overlap? And don't you think that when that's what exists out there beyond your current physical limitations or physical self, that there might be an alternate reality where you're happier, or where you have the desire, where you have the thing, where you didn't experience the pain, or you didn't struggle with the health issue, where, a totally different timeline existed. And we could break this down into saying, like, as a past life or future life, it's there. As a different dimension or different uh, Earth kind of plane or galaxy, it's there. Or we could just break it down from the sense of, even in this reality right here, right now, you can start to translate and show up in that different way, and allow yourself to break out of what you currently feel is your limitation, what you currently feel is like, oh, this is where I'll be forever, or this is where I'm stuck, this is all that it is. Realizing that there is literally an infinite amount of alternate possibilities, alternate realities, alternate timelines for you right here, right now. So when you feel limited, or you feel stuck, or you're not sure, or you don't believe that you can achieve a certain goal or desire, all you need to do is like open yourself up to the expansiveness of your existence and realize like all those things are possible. And all you need to do, coming full circle to the manifestation comment at the beginning, all you need to do is align with it. So when I have created the quantum leaps with huge changes in relationships, and seeing my parents show up in a way that they never did before, that years ago I would have never believed was possible for them, like seeing money goals and business goals show up in ways I would have never believed, living out the childhood dream of working with elephants or traveling the world, certain things that I dreamed about and it felt so out of reach. Those were all potential timelines, or all different threads on the sheet that makes up my life. And even if I didn't believe it was possible, the times that I manifested the really beautiful, amazing things, and actually the times that I manifested or created the negative things, were because I was jumping onto that specific thread and I was aligning with it vibrationally. So before I manifested the job working with, like, now I keep using the word manifest. Oh, I hate it, but it's like most people use it, so it's just so easy to use it. But anyway, when I attracted or created the job working with elephants, I was so sure of it before anything even happened. And it was like I knew in every cell in my body that I was going to get that job. I was about to take a gap year and leave Canada with no plans other than my first 6 weeks in Sri Lanka, planned with a friend. But I had found an elephant sanctuary I was going to volunteer at for the following 2 weeks, and I just kept saying to everyone, I'm going to get a job there after. Like, they're going to love me. I'm going to be a great volunteer, and they're going to realize like I have all this experience with animal welfare and working at other sanctuaries and with wildlife, and I'm like passionate and loving, and I think a great human being. So I was like, they're gonna love me and they're gonna offer me a job and I'll end up working there. And it didn't make logical sense, and everyone was questioning it or doubting it. People were telling me I wasn't qualified. They were all worried about, what's your backup plan? What are you gonna do if that doesn't happen? And I just held and vibrationally aligned with like, this is happening. And I don't even need to explain it or anything. I just know that it's happening. So when I went there, I did the 2 weeks of volunteering, and then I continued on my travels for a little bit. And all of a sudden, unexpectedly, a job opened up and they were hiring for a role. And I thought, here we go. This is what I knew was going to happen. So even though I feel underqualified, I'm going to apply and fill out the big form and all the things. And I handed it over. I didn't focus on it. I didn't attach to it because I just felt like it already was. And I think that's the secret, right? Because then I allowed that bend in the time matrix, the time space reality to like shift, or I allowed that little folding of the two potential realities there of like working with elephants, not working with elephants, right? And then obviously so many other potential realities as well. But I allowed those to kind of fold and overlap, and I stayed aligned with the desired one, and I got the job. And then I was there and I spent 6 months, and then I returned again for another 3 months or something. And like it became a second home and opened up so many beautiful doors and pathways for my life. So when we look at how much potential there is for you, how many opportunities there are for you to create right now, you came down here to create. With that said, you also were handed baggage and a lot of trauma, and likely a childhood that you maybe consciously wouldn't have chosen if you had the chance to go back and do it differently. But I believe on a soul level, we agree to these things before we come in, and they were part of our contract or part of our growth and the lessons to then reach the biggest desires. So it's kind of like your duty now to get clear on what is the reality you're wanting to jump into, and letting this be a mini or maybe like a big example, a very out there, esoteric, universal example of how these things can overlap. And actually, it's overlapping on our dimensional plane way more than that example from the Dolores Cannon book, because that was speaking about like two parallel universes where almost in the sense like the guy went hunting and somehow walked through a portal without knowing it and killed the animal and walked back and brought it home, and it made no sense that that animal would be found on Earth, right? Like that's a very extreme example. But on a smaller scale, that is no different than the potential to align with a totally new reality tomorrow or right now today, and to start to see, okay, this is the doorway I actually want to walk through. This is the doorway to who I want to be. How can I align with it right now and start showing up as them? Even though the money isn't in the bank, even though the partner isn't here, even though I'm still confused on my purpose or my next steps or my life's path, right? Even though this is my current 3D reality, I'm going to align with the desire and show up from that. And I promise you, doing that is going to align everything, because you're shifting your vibrational frequency, you're aligning the cells of your body with what you're wanting to call in. You're literally recalibrating yourself to become a match for it before it shows up in the physical, so that when it shows up in the physical, you can hold it and you don't freak out and you don't panic, or you don't go like, this is scary. Like, I don't know what to do with this. You've been preparing for it for a while by acting as if, which is Neville Goddard, right? But let's not get into more conversations and more people. I'm going to leave that here. But I just felt like, oh, lastly, I will get into one more thing because I mentioned Interstellar, and it's the same thing. The Dolores Cannon image in my mind, the sheet of the fabric, and it's folding over, and suddenly these two things touch that otherwise usually don't interact. Reminded me as well of the scene in Interstellar. I just rewatched it like a month ago, I think. And the scene where they're explaining the black hole and like explaining jumping through and how usually, you'd have to go, I'm not even going to describe it because I'll butcher it, but you have to go a certain way, but the black hole like collapses all of that, right? Like one piece of paper suddenly gets shrunk and both ends are touching. And so it's like you're going straight through that middle to get to the other side. And that's just kind of how it felt listening to her explanation in the book of realizing like that these phenomena do exist where time and space and reality do not work in the way we've been led to believe they always work. That's why I love working with the energetic realm, with the quantum healing work, because you're transcending the limits of the 3D reality, because you're getting out of the physical body and the physical present here now moment, and you're getting into that state of the subconscious, or that relaxed realm where your higher self and those higher guidance, that connection to source can come in, and instantaneous healing occurs. And I've seen that with clients who have had physical health issues for years, and within 20 minutes it's gone and they don't have it ever again because they're getting out of the limits of the physical body and into that space of just pure consciousness, pure connection to source and to God, which is healing. It is abundance. It's how you can manifest the money. It's pure love, pure unconditional love, which is how you can create that after years of trauma or struggle. So you get out of the limits and into that higher realm or that other dimension, and boom, instantaneous shifts can occur, and new parts of the fabric touch one another, and boom, your whole reality gets to shift and shape itself from there. So go have fun with this. Go have lots of fun with this. And yeah, I'll be back again soon with more on all of these cool topics and quantum entanglement and different dimensions and realities and space time and all that stuff. So I'm sending love, and I will see you soon.